Hello, and welcome to Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is a brand new game from Nepos Games, a two-person development team from Prague. It sparks memories of classic isometric city builders such as Zeus and Poseidon, Pharaoh and Cleopatra, and the Caesar series. Caesar 3 is one of my all-time favorite games, so this brings a ton of nostalgia for me. Nebuchadnezzar is releasing on Steam on February 17th. However, Nepos Games has been gracious enough to give me a preview copy to play for you today. We're going to start on the campaign at the beginning, taking a look at the various tutorials, before continuing into the unguided parts of the campaign. I've already played the first tutorial, but I think it would be nice to start at the beginning for this series. So let's get started. Nebuchadnezzar has quite a few options here in the settings. I haven't really monkeyed with anything but the sound, so we're going to keep everything kind of at default and or near default. The game is going to be moddable. It's not modded. There's no mods yet until the game is available, but it will be. And I'm assuming you'll also be able to create scenarios and share them on maybe the Steam. Oh boy, blown mind. The Steam Workshop. Eventually as this game is released. But we can't do any of that today, so let's go ahead and just get started on the campaign. Nebuchadnezzar. This campaign will lead you through the whole story of ancient Mesopotamia and all that civilization's milestones, from initial settlement to the fall of Babylon. Experience the story of one of the first civilizations, a civilization of imposing cities and grand monuments. So, this preview copy of the game gives us access to all of the campaign's scenarios, but we're going to, as I mentioned earlier, play them through, starting at the beginning in the tutorial, and then we'll get to, I think it's to 5 or so, 6 maybe, before you get to before you get out of the tutorials. So the tutorials, though, they do a good job of showing you a few things and in a really unique way, and we're going to actually take a look at that now. So, Pre-Pottery Neolithic A. Pre-Pottery Neolithic A was the first significant Neolithic culture in the Near East. So we have a few objectives here. 300 population, 20 stored wheat, 20 stored bread, and 12 houses at the shack level. And we'll get into the different housing levels as the tutorials progress. Pre-Pottery Neolithic A was a Near East culture that inhabited the so-called Fertile Crescent between 10,000 and 8700 BC. There are archaeological artifacts from this culture in the Levantine and Mesopotamia. It was preceded by the Natufian culture. Typical housing for this culture consisted of circular houses sunk into the ground with stone foundations. Walls are made of unbaked bricks and the floors of terrazzo. The fireplace and cooking area were usually outside. This is the first time in history that we see the development of organized agriculture. Local cereals such as barley and oat were common crops. They're wild forms at first, but they were gradually replaced by cultivated variants. There were no irrigation systems yet, and so crops were only grown in areas with sufficient moisture. The development of agriculture was also made possible thanks to the first granaries, which allowed for longer storage thanks to better ventilation and protection from rodents. Granaries were placed outside at first, but were later gradually moved to special rooms in houses. Merabit was an ancient settlement on the west bank of the Euphrates in today's northern Syria. The city was inhabited between roughly 10,200 and 8,000 BC. The first settlement was during the Natufian culture. The archaeological site was flooded by Lake Assad in 1974. Its diameter was about 75 meters. So we have two choices for difficulty, which I assume will expand as the game is released. I'm also amused by, can we see it down here? There's some nice labeling on the map here, and I've of course covered it up. But there's a lot of, the map looks really nice to me. So we're going to play on normal difficulty. At ease gives us some benefits here, which I'm okay with not having. So we're going to play on normal difficulty. Your group of nomads has finally found what they were seeking for so long. An area with sufficient fertile soil and a good climate. An ideal place for permanent settlement. and you, as the leader of the group, will have the most important role. You will organize the construction of your new home. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to Nebuchadnezzar. I am Gilgamesh, and I will be your guide for your first few missions, during which I'll walk you through the basics of the game, as well as cover a few advanced techniques. Ready? Then let's start. So at this point, even if you start the tutorials, you actually have the option of skipping them. If you think you don't need my help, you can end the tutorial by pressing the button below. But if this is your first time playing, I'd strongly recommend following the tutorial. If you decide you want to turn it on again at any point in the future, you will need to restart the whole mission. So that's kind of nice that you can play these missions without the tutorial once you learn the game. It's a nice quality of life measure, I think, because the missions, to me, are kind of important to the story of the game. And when you have to play through the eventually annoying tutorial in order to play these missions, it kind of strikes you a little bit. I'm thinking of things like Age of Empires 2, the first campaign, or actually both Age of Empires for that matter. You kind of get bogged down by the tutorial, and playing that mission is secondary to the tutorial itself. But let's continue with the tutorial. So Gilgamesh shows us all the different kind of stuff that we can of course use control-wise in the game, and kind of amusingly, it becomes part of him. So the first thing I'll show you is how to move windows. Simply grab any part of the window and using the cursor, and then move it to its new position. Try it on me, then we'll continue. So we can just do that, move it around. To close any window, simply right-click anywhere inside that window. Try it on me, then we'll continue. Excellent. Since we want to continue, I've opened the window again for you. Now I'll show you how to move around the map. There are 3 ways to do so. So we have WASD, of course, and then we have, and I didn't read the whole thing, but then we have moving the cursor to the edge of the screen, and then we can middle mouse button and grab to move the screen around. Kind of common methods to move the screen around. And we also can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. And we also have the speed button up here. The current speed is 1x. We'll continue. We can press and hold the E key, which is just kind of a nice thing. If you need to speed up time temporarily, the best option is to hold down the speed up key. In the default setting, this is the E key. The game will then only be sped up while the key is held down. So we can press E and it jumps to 4x, and then we let it go and it jumps back down to 1x, which is super nice. If you want to change the game speed for a longer period of time, there are 2 ways. The first is using keys, so we can do plus and minus on the num keys. And the other option is to click these plus and minus buttons, and then finally we can click the play button to pause the game, or use Q or space to do so. User interface also has other elements, but I'll explain those later when you need them. Okay, now we're finally ready to start building. Actually, there's one more thing that I need to show you. On the left of the screen, you'll notice a few green question marks. These represent new sections in our game's wiki, where each such section contains an in-depth explanation of one of the gameplay mechanics in Nebuchadnezzar. So if you ever forget how something works, or you simply want to find out more, this is the place to look. Now start building a few houses. Houses provide accommodation for the people who work and live in your city. To build something, first open the respective category in the lower menu, and then select the required building. So we have a few categories down here. We have remove, which is like a destroy screen or menu. We have infrastructure, which is things like roads. We have logistics, which is right now just warehouses. We have houses, which is, well, houses. And then we have food production, which is things like farms and crafting buildings. So we're going to take the housing option here, and next choose where you want to build the building. If the whole area is green, you can place that building with a left click of your mouse. So one of the good things about this tutorial is it will only let you place it where it wants you to, so you can't mess up and accidentally, and it guides you with the colors of the boxes there. First settlers. The first settlers have just arrived in your city. Take good care of them. You'll need them. Welcome. Excellent. As you see, new people are arriving in your city. Some buildings, such as houses, can also be built by dragging the mouse over the area which you want to place them. So you can just drag a box of houses like that. Good. You might now notice now that some houses seem to be having problems. If you move your cursor to the floating question mark, you'll see that the building is not connected to any road. Let's fix that. So now we need to build infrastructure, dirt roads, and we'll just follow the blue path here, the blue section, And again, the game won't let us leave those lines. Excellent. All the houses are now accessible and should soon welcome their new settlers. Since our city is now starting to grow nicely, let's have a look at the mission objectives. You can see that some mission objectives are already complete. The remaining 2 items ask you to stockpile wheat and bread. So we have 12 houses already built. We just need to do our stockpile, and we also needed to have 300 people, which was no problem. So let's build a farm and continue here. So we have our farming, or our food production here, and we'll build a crop farm here where the blue square is. Good, the farm is now ready, but also seems to have a problem. The problem here is that the farm doesn't have any fields where it could grow crops. To build a field, open the menu with the agricultural structures in the bottom left corner of the farm window. That's here, and this, and then we can build wheat field, which leads to wheat. So we'll click that. Then select wheat field and build it as you would any other building. The only restriction is that the fields must always be placed near their farm. So we're going to build some wheat fields here and here. Excellent. Okay, but now you might be wondering why exactly 36 fields. If you have a closer look at the farm window, you'll see that it currently employs 2 farmers. An even closer look will reveal 2 numbers in the bottom left corner of their card. The first represents the current number of fields tended by the given farmer. The second is the maximum number of fields that the farmer can tend per year. If you build fewer fields, then the farmer won't be fully utilized, while if you build more, the excess fields won't be used at all. That doesn't mean that you can always need to build the ideal number of fields. Sometimes there might not be enough space for more, while in other cases you might not need maximum production. So we have these cards here on each building, which is kind of an interesting way of assigning workers and such to buildings. And so you can see also, let's pause for a moment. You can see that there's this number here too, which indicates how many workers there actually are represented by this card. So while this is one card, it is 30 workers. And while this is one card, it is 20 workers. And this happens to be a transporter, and these happen to be farmers. And I think the tutorial might help us with that in a moment. Actually, maybe it doesn't. Excellent. It is still possible that your farmers are not working yet. This is caused by the fact that each crop can only be cultivated in a specific part of the year. Specifically, wheat can only be sown between January and March. The current month is displayed in the upper panel, right here. So before we start producing wheat, we can prepare bread production. So let's unpause. Before we start building a bakery, I need to tell you about transporting goods. Goods are transported by haulers, which is another type of slot. Just like farmers, these can be hired into work buildings. Haulers operate automatically and transport goods between their building and other work buildings or warehouses. However, the most important thing to keep in mind is that they have limited range. This means they won't transport goods to buildings too far from their home building. This range can be displayed, let's pause for a second. This range can be displayed by using the flag button on the hauler card, and in construction mode is marked with a blue square around the building. All buildings in a range also have a blue overlay. No transport will happen between two buildings out of range of the hauler. So when we were here, we can click on this flag, and we can see the range that the hauler will travel to deliver the goods from this farm, or rather the transporter, in this case, to other buildings from this farm. So now we need to get back to work and build 2 bakeries in the highlighted area down here. So we'll do that by going here into the bakery. We won't need any warehouses to produce bread, since haulers can bring wheat from a farm directly to the bakery. But since we need to store bread and wheat to complete the mission objectives, we'll also need to build a warehouse. So we now need to build 2 warehouses. Let's unpause the game, and I want to talk about the farmers a little bit here. So you can see now it says they're sowing, and you can watch them sow the fields here in the farm, which is really nice. And they'll go through in January, February, and March and get all those fields sown in those 3 months. And then we will get back to, and they kind of do some weird pattern when they're sowing. It's kind of interesting. But we'll get back to the quest at hand here in a momentarily. So they finish, and then the grain starts, or the wheat specifically starts growing. Let's build our warehouses here and here. To be sure these warehouses will be sufficient for wheat as well as bread, we need to make sure to set everything up just right. Each warehouse can be configured only to accept specific goods. Use the buttons shown below to allow or ban the storage of specific goods in a warehouse. So here we can say that we want to allow wheat, but ban bread in this one. And we can ban wheat and allow bread in this one. Excellent. However, sometimes a warehouse is still storing goods you don't want there. To remove them, you won't need to do anything complicated and certainly won't need to destroy the whole warehouse. Simply use the button shown, which is Destroy All Goods, which will remove all goods of the given type from the warehouse. So now you can see that it's harvest time. It's August, and they're harvesting the grain, and then the haulers, or the transporters, are transporting the grain, the wheat, to either the bakeries or to the warehouse for storage. And they do that all automatically, and whether the bakeries transporters here are doing the hauling or the farms haulers here, I'm not entirely sure at all times, but I think probably if the item is coming from the farm, the farm's transporters haulers are doing it. If the item is being dealt from a warehouse, then it's probably the bakery in this case. If it's being pulled from the warehouse, I should say, it's probably the bakery in this case. That's the impression that I'm getting from it. Great, and since everything is set up for the successful completion of the mission, I'll take my leave for now. Once you close this last page of the tutorial, you can continue building without further restrictions. Feel free to experiment a bit. We'll see each other in the next mission, where I'll show you how to get the tasty bread you made to your city's inhabitants. Alright, well, we'll see you later, Gilgamesh. So, we are storing up bread. What I want to do here is, we have a target of 20 bread. So one of the things we can do here is tick this down to 20. And notice that it ticked down by 4. That's because each slot on the warehouse will store 4 pieces of bread. And there are 9 slots, so it started out at 36, which was the full warehouse, and we want to stop it at 20. And the reason we want to stop it at 20 is because we need to stockpile the wheat as well, and we're never going to be able to stockpile the wheat unless we stop making bread. And there's 2 ways to do that, and I'm going to actually demonstrate both of them. I'm going to hold down the E key so that we get the speed up, and we get through this here. Okay. And there's all the bread we need. So now what I want to do, I can do also, is for one thing, we did limit the warehouse to only 20 people, but the other, or 20 pieces of bread rather. The other thing we can do is go into each building, and we can click this button to deactivate the building, and that will keep it from taking any more wheat from the farms to make any more bread. And yes, while we could make the rest of the wheat in them into bread, we don't need to. And I would rather just not accidentally have them taking wheat from the farm. So let's speed up again. And race through this year, and maybe that'll be enough wheat. It might not be. We may have to go another year because of the 12 that's in here. Let's see. Oh, maybe we'll make it. No, 18... Okay, so each field gives you like a half a wheat, because there were 36 fields that we planted. So we have to wait for another year, unless I had been quick enough to pause these before they took too much wheat upon themselves. And it's July, and we're done. So we've now completed the mission. We can continue playing. But we're super limited in the choices we have for things to do in this mission, or we can just proceed to the next mission. So that's what we're going to do. Pre-Pottery Neolithic B. Objectives are 900 population and 16 poor houses. Pre-Pottery Neolithic B was the culture of the Near East that followed Pre-Pottery Neolithic A. The people who lived in this period began intensively utilizing livestock, which became the primary livelihood for many. It is dated between approximately 8700 and 6500 BC. It's also known as the first culture in this area to feature rectangular houses. One important part of the houses from this period is the flooring, which was made of white clay plaster from limestone. It is believed that the use of clay plaster in the walls and floors led to the discovery of pottery. The first pre-pottery vessels that started to appear around 7000 BC were made from a mixture of lime and ash layered over baskets. We also see plastered human skulls in this period. These played an important role in the funerals and demonstrate the great importance the people of this period assigned to the burying their dead. At this time, they are considered one of the first forms of art in the area and are also among the first historical examples of portraiture. This culture disappeared during the so-called 8.2 kiloyear event, a climactic event which lasted approximately 200 years from 6200 to 6000 BC and led to a sudden drop in global temperature. However, the general cultural development of the local inhabitants continued after the period ended. Tel Aswad was a large ancient settlement located about 50 kilometers from today's Damascus, Syria. The settlement was inhabited between 8700 and 3500 BC. The archaeological site was discovered in 1967 and has a diameter of approximately 250 meters. Tel Aswad offers an important window into the PPNB and especially into how the organization of work and society progressed in this period. So, Pre-Pottery Neolithic B, of course. Well, that's what was covered up. The edge lines of the historical mouth, or the historical opening of the Gulf here, as sea waters were higher. Interesting. Okay, let's play, and we'll again continue on normal difficulty. After a long search, you finally find a place suitable for your new settlement. In addition to fertile soil, there are also many grazing animals in the vicinity. In fact, seeing them, you begin to wonder whether hunting them is really the best one could do. Let's try something different. Greetings and welcome back. I'll show you how to distribute the goods and food you make to create a larger and more prosperous city. I've already built a few houses so that we can go right to the more interesting part. And again, as usual, we can skip the tutorial by pressing the button below. First, we need to find out the current needs of our houses. Open a house window. Right now, we're just interested in the left part of the window. Here you can find the requirements for each available level. If you secure all the required goods for a house, the house will be promoted to the next level and will then provide housing for more people. But be warned, the house will continuously consume these goods, and if these run out, its level will drop and you will lose the extra inhabitants and the labor they provide. So over here we have a need for bread and for milk in order to reach level 2. And that's goods and services required for the given level. And over here we said we're not going to look at this just yet. Each shack has room for 30 people. And then can go up to 62 at the next level. All goods are distributed using sellers that work in the markets. Build one market next to a house in the highlighted area to continue. Okay, so that's probably a... Oh, there's a new menu here. Poor market. Alright, let's look at that. This says consumes bread and milk and provides bread and milk. Good. Excellent. Now I can tell you more about how slots work. A work building will never do anything on its own. Instead, they each have several slots which can be occupied by a specific profession. This slot then performs the designated work. To assign a worker to a slot, use the plus button, and then select the type of slot you want to use. So here at the poor market, we have 2 transporter cart slots already filled. So we're going to click the plus button here, and then each slot requires a certain number of workers recruited from the city's inhabitants to do their related work. The number of workers is displayed in the bottom left corner of the slot portrait. So that's what we talked about in the last scenario. The current unemployment level and the number of missing workers is available in the upper panel right next to the current month. So here we have 92% unemployment. So we need to hire a bread seller and a milk seller at the market. So we'll hire a seller of bread and a seller of milk. Good, you can now see that a new warning has appeared above the market, but we can ignore it for now. We'll get to that in a moment. For a market to start distributing goods, it needs to have these goods in its internal storage. The next image shows you where the current internal storage is displayed in the work building window. So here we have the internal storage of the building, which is 10 bread and 10 milk. Now you'll get the opportunity to show me what you learned from the previous mission. Build 1 farm with wheat fields, 2 bakeries, and 1 livestock farm with goat pastures to produce milk. Okay, so we need to do that and transport 1 bread and 1 milk to the market. Alright, so we have a crop farm option again, and we can build this, once again, basically anywhere we want, as long as we can make it adjacent to a road and we have enough green area around it to put down fields. So maybe we'll do it over here. Let's think. Yeah, we can put it in right in here. And of course then we need to plant our fields. And it's September, so that's good. Oops, I forgot to drag 18 and 36. And that's enough for the two farmers we have here. And then we also need a goat farm. Wrong button. And that'll be... let's put that here. And we'll do... This needs to have goat pasture, which produce milk. 18 and 36. And then I want to put down a warehouse here in between them, just for storage reasons. And we'll have it only accept wheat and milk, and only small amounts, maybe a dozen of each. Okay, and our farmers are planting, our livestock workers are delivering milk to their to the market. And we should hit June and July. There we go. Okay, now we should have some. Now we need to make some bakeries. I forgot about the bakeries. Let's put down bakeries here and here, and we'll let them get cooking. And we should be delivering bread now to the market. Almost. Why do I need to have room available here for that? Probably. Let's put a dozen here as well. Yep, that's what it was. Okay, they weren't able to deliver it directly to the market. They have to deliver it to a warehouse, which then the market can pick up from. Excellent, but how will we know that our production can cover the demand? Open the Advisor tab with statistics to continue. Here you'll find an estimate of the current annual production and consumption of each type of good in your city. These estimates assume that each slot has enough workers and there are no transport delays. Here you can also find current annual production and consumption as well as current efficiency. Since even a well-working transport system can experience minor fluctuations, I recommend keeping a small reserve in production. But now let's go back. Okay, let's wait and not go back yet. So we have 18 production per year of wheat, and we have up to 18 consumption. And then we have, I assume that's what that means. Annual estimate, current efficiency. Okay, current value. Okay, so we can produce up to 18 of each of these, and we could consume up to 18 wheat to make 16 bread and 16. We can consume up to 16 bread and up to 16 milk at our 16 houses, which makes sense. So let's go back to the warning we saw above the market, since that's actually related to the distribution of goods. This warning says that the sellers don't have any route to follow. Sellers, unlike haulers, don't work automatically. They follow the route set by the player and supply houses along this route. To configure the route, activate the tool for the new checkpoints, and then add them by clicking on the map. The seller's checkpoint can only be placed on a road. So let's click the plus sign here for this first seller, and then we can send the seller along the road in the path that we want the seller to follow, which I think that looks like a good path. And we don't have to necessarily close the loop here. This is actually good enough. So if you want to remove the last checkpoint, we can use the minus button. If we want to display the current route, we can use the flag button. And then we can also copy the route of another seller if we have the tool for the new checkpoints activated. So let's add and then click on this to copy that route from the bread seller to the milk seller automatically. So they'll both follow the same route because we copied from one to the other. Excellent. You should now see your houses gradually receive bread and milk. Each house that receives both resources will increase its level and be able to accommodate new inhabitants. Important note, in most cases you won't be able to satisfy the needs of a whole block of houses during the first round trip of a cellar. In fact, some houses might first lose a level they previously attained before the level of the whole block goes up. That's completely fine. It's certainly not necessary to immediately hire a new cellar. Just check that your production can cover the consumption, and all houses should eventually receive the products they need. Don't forget that you can always speed up time to see the results of your work sooner. That's all for this mission. You did great. The mission will complete as soon as all the houses level up. In the next mission, we'll have a look at how to grow crops in drier environments using irrigation. Okay, so as these people arrive, which they're gonna, there it goes right now. We hit the end of the mission, and it kind of so kind of a few things here. I'm gonna actually continue playing just so that I can talk a little bit before we end the episode. The first thing is that I really like that cellar path tool. That, I mean, having played a million hours of Caesar, especially Caesar 3 back in the day, that is a lifesaver. All the prefectures and engineers that never went down a road, you had to cheese the whole pathing system, that is completely gone now. The fact that you can set these cellars to follow this path, and they will, and we don't have a problem anymore, is awesome. Also, the additional functionality in the warehouse is it's gonna be a lifesaver as we get later into the game and have many more materials to manage. Choosing how many workers to set here and how you want to utilize the worker slot cards we have available is going to be great as well, because we could add another farmer here and have 18 more fields around this farm. We could add another transporter here, and I'm assuming we probably want a farmer and a transporter. That one transporter can't keep up with 4 farmers, I'm guessing. But we'll have to see as we progress through the game. So I think we're going to leave this here. I hope you enjoyed this playthrough of the first couple of tutorials, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And we'll be back with another episode with at least another tutorial or two, and we'll get through these tutorials and then we'll start on the regular levels. So thank you all for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.